Welcome to Ekam Academy. In this video, we are going to discuss about recent law which is so much in news, that is UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Why this is so much in news? Because recently one person, Goldie Brar, he was accused in some murders and kidnapping, was listed as a terrorist under this particular law. Not only that, there is another organization in Jammu and Kashmir, that is Tehreek-e-Harrier. This organization is also listed as a terrorist organization for promoting Islamist rule based from Jammu and Kashmir. So because of these two things, UAPA is so much in news. So we'll be discussing about what is UAPA, what is its origin, why government has brought UAPA, what are its provisions, what is its scope, okay? So who can be listed as terrorists and what type of provisions are there, what are the punishments that were awarded, what acts amounts to terrorist acts under this particular law, and what are the amendments that were made subsequently after enactment of this particular act, and what is the controversy with respect to this, and what are the courts who are designated or which courts are designated with dealing with such cases, and all these things we are going to discuss one by one. So this concept is very important for your GS paper 2, that is governance as well as internal security point of view also. So for prelims, they can ask straightforward statements like what is a particular feature of this particular act, like for example, what is the amendment in 2019 aimed at. So such questions can be asked in prelims. So stay tuned till the end so that you will not miss any particular thing regarding UAPA. So we'll be discussing here why it is in use, what is meaning of this UAPA Act, when it was brought, what are the provisions of this particular act. We'll be discussing the amendment, recent amendment was brought in 2019. What are the features of such amendment, what are the issues, why people are criticizing this UAPA, and what are Supreme Court rulings with respect to this law, and what is the way ahead. Okay, these are the things we are going to discuss in the video. As I said, this is part of GS paper 2, government policies. Okay, then why it is in news? Recently, gangster Goldie Brar, who was accused in different murder and kidnapping cases, was declared as a designated terrorist under this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act by the Ministry of Home Affairs. This is what you have to remember. Okay, so whenever an act is in news, you have to remember who is, which is the nodal ministry associated with that particular act. So here, Union Home Affairs is the ministry associated. So what is the meaning of UAPA Act? Here you have to remember some things like this UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, was originally brought in 1967. But you need to know a little background about this particular act. Because in 1960s, there is a lot of insurgency or different types of secessionist activities growing in the country. At that point of time, to deal with these activities, initially in 1966, an ordinance was brought with respect to dealing with these unlawful activities. But you know, when an ordinance is brought, okay, so you know normally the lifetime of an ordinance is 6 months. So normally within 6 months it should get passed in both the houses of parliament, otherwise it will lapse. So because of the stringent provisions under this particular ordinance dealing with unlawful activities, it could not get parliamentary approval. So then what happened in March of 1967? Okay, there is Naxalbari movement happening at that point of time. Okay, Naxalbari movement. This is a peasant uprising in West Bengal region. So this started. Okay, so it became so intense. At that point of time, government has to bring a law which is dealing with some unlawful activities to curtail down this movement. So that is why this necessitated bringing of this UAPA Act in 1967. So although insurgency activities have been the reason, but main reason was this Naxalbari movement which initiated in 1967 March. So that is the reason why the government was why government has brought this UAPA in 1967 itself. So now you have to know some features with respect to this particular unlawful activity. So here you have to remember what is unlawful activity. UAPA means, actually you need to know this is originally passed in 1967. Here you have to remember this is an alternative criminal law. What does this mean? Normally, you know, criminal laws means we have IPC, CRPC dealing with procedural and substantive aspects of the law. But here, UAPA is not a generalized law. It is a special law. What is meaning of this special law? Normally, if you know, IPC is a generalized law, means different types of crimes are dealt in IPC. Okay, so different types of crimes. There is no specific particular issue that was dealt only by IPC. But here, in case of UAPA, because IPC is not rigorously dealing with this unlawful activities or terrorist activities, there is a need for special law. That is why this UAPA was brought in 1967 as a special law. That means it is an alternative criminal law. That means where general principles of criminal law are reversed. So what is the general principle of criminal law here? Normally in a criminal law, you know, normally no one will be treated guilty unless proven. Okay, so that means here bail is a rule. Okay, and jail is an exception. Normally means until unless that person is proven guilty, he cannot be sentenced to jail in normal criminal law. But in case of UAPA, that as it is dealing with unlawful activities or terrorist activities, here jail is the rule. Okay, jail is the rule and bail is an exception. This is the meaning. Okay, so what are the general principles of criminal law reversed means this is getting reversed. You can see here. Here bail is a rule in general criminal law, but here jail is the rule. That means a person here normally until proven guilty, a person cannot be cannot be considered as committing that crime and all. But in case of this UAPA, without so in case of the prima facie only will be looked into, and based on the totality of the case only, that person will be sentenced. So the person on whom the accusations are made, he have to prove that whether he have done that crime or not. But it is not the case in the general criminal law. That is meaning of this particular provision of general criminal law getting reversed. And what is the correlation between UAPA and IPC means? UAPA gives more provisions with respect to or more powers with respect to IPC, because IPC is general law whereas UAPA is a specialized law. When it was enacted in 1967, what is the mandate of UAPA? More effective prevention of certain unlawful activities, of individuals and associations for dealing with terrorist activities. Whatever unlawful activities dealing with terrorism or terrorist related activities are dealt by this UAPA. Next we have unlawful activity. What is unlawful activity means? Any crime, a crime which is contravening the law, and before or after the commencement of this act is considered as an unlawful activity. And terrorist activity definition is defined under section 15 of the act. Terrorist act is punishable. Here they have said terrorist act is punishable with an imprisonment of at least 5 years to lifetime imprisonment. This is what they have defined under 1967 law. But if you see, the most important feature of this particular law is it has given absolute powers to the central government. Central government has absolute powers to designate who is a terrorist, or which organization is a terrorist organization or which organization is unlawful. How they can do so? Just they can release a gazette notification, and they can, if they consider that this particular organization is unlawful or it is indulging in terrorist activity, it can be declared as unlawful using this official gazette. Who is having the power? Entire powers with the central government itself. There is no powers for the state. You have to remember. And then what is applicability or scope of this particular law? Here you have to remember citizens of India outside India also. It is applicable normally, Parliament laws are applicable to citizens of India. And another important thing you have to remember here is in prelims also, Parliament laws have extraterritorial jurisdiction also. Suppose for example if NRIs are there, so for them also our laws will apply. That means any citizens living outside India are also coming under the ambit of this UAPA. And another important thing you have to remember is this unique feature of this law is it is even applicable to foreigners as well. Foreigners means, for example, if any foreigner, so if a person is he is residing in Australia, and from there if he is planning some terrorist activity in India, then although if he is a US citizen or Australian citizen also, then also he can be held liable under this UAPA. That is one unique feature of this new law, 1967 law. And persons in the service of the government also or under this particular law, and persons on ships, aircrafts and registered in India or wherever there may be. So because the persons will be engaged in trade and also those persons also can engage into these activities. That is why this is applicable even to them. Timeline. So the charge sheet must be filed within 180 days, and also investigation should be completed within 90 days. So there is a provision of default bail. Means if investigation is not completed within 90 days and if charge sheet is not filed, then he is eligible for default bail. That is one another provision. And special courts are designated to deal with these acts. That means not normal courts are empowered. So ordinary courts are not empowered to deal with UAPA related cases. So specialized courts will be established under this particular law. We'll be seeing in the next amendments. So here the most important amendment, and there is after 1967 amendment, there are some terrorist cases happening, and all. You might have remembered about 2001 Parliament attack, and also we have in 2008. Okay, in 2008 there is attack in Mumbai. Okay, terrorist attack in Mumbai. At that point of time, if you have remembered, an US citizen, okay, called David Headley, he was also accused in this particular attack. So at that point of time also we can make him liable under UAPA because foreigners are also sentenced under UAPA. So here the act is empowering the government to designate individuals. What is the important thing in this particular thing? In 1967 Act, only organizations are empowered. Okay, also government is empowered to list only organizations as terrorist organizations. But in 2019 Act, organizations plus individuals are also empowered. Individuals means individual persons are also empowered to be designated as terrorists. So many individuals are being sentenced now. Like for example, if you have remembered this Goldie Bar, okay, Goldie Bar, this person was also designated as a terrorist under this individual capacity itself. And central government will designate an organization as a terrorist organization if it participates in any act of terrorism, if it prepares for terrorism, promotes terrorism, or otherwise involved in any act of terrorism also, then they can be designated as terrorist organizations. Then what is the definition? So here there is a clear-cut definition of terrorist act. Previously section 15 is dealing with the definition of terrorist act in 1967 Act, right? So here they have given more elaborated definition. What is the definition? Any action intended to threaten or likely to threaten. Intended to threaten means after happening, or if there is a chance of threatening also. Which is the main important thing you have to remember here? Unity, integrity, security, economic security and sovereignty of the country. So in case if these things are getting threatened, then the person or the organization can be liable under this UAPA under the ambit of terrorist act. Okay, so you might have remembered, if you know, if you are very good in polity, you answer this question. What are the words like? For the words like unity, integrity and sovereignty finds mention in which parts of Indian Constitution? Okay, the words unity, integrity and sovereignty finds mention in which part of Indian Constitution? Answer in the comment section. Here you have to understand another important word is economic security. What is meant by this economic security? For example, if any person is indulged in counterfeit currency notes, okay, so or if they're involved in smuggling, those type of activities are also considered as terrorist acts only under UAPA. Here, this is mainly aimed at striking terror in the people. So in case any act, if it is aimed at striking terror in the people or in some sections or even in abroad also, then it amounts to terrorist act. Originally, the act primarily focused on unlawful acts related to secession. As I told you in 1960s, because of this only, 1967 we have new act. And anti-terror provisions were introduced in 2004, mainly after 2001 Parliament attack. This anti-terror provisions were also included. Then what are the issues with UAPA? Here you have to remember there is low conviction rate. So many people are getting arrested, but there is low conviction. So normally when a person is arrested, there can be two chances. Accused person, he can be acquitted. Okay, he can be acquitted and he can be convicted. So both things can happen. Convicted means if he is proven guilty, means the court said this person, the court is believing that this person has committed the crime and he was awarded some sentence or some punishment. Acquitted means he is completely released. Okay, he is not found guilty. Okay, he is not found guilty of the crime. So conviction means here the persons who are arrested or not convicted means they are not proven guilty. Low conviction rate is one major issue. That means there are some criticisms that government is misusing this particular law to arrest so many persons against whom, the persons who will write something against the government or who promote some activities against the government. So that is one criticism. And there is a sharp rise in news. In the recent times only we are finding so much this particular law in news. That is also one criticism. And the stringent provision of bail. As I told you, in general law, bail is a rule, but in the UAPA, jail is a rule and bail is an exception. Means normally you will not be given bail. Okay, that is a stringent provision. And highly discretionary. Discretionary means mainly powers are given to the central government itself. That is one another issue. Ignoring fundamental rights, because under Article 20 and 22 also you have some provisions, okay, for the persons who are arrested and detained. So these are also ignored sometimes. These are the issues with UAPA. And what is the Supreme Court ruling? Here you have to remember that in 2020, this is a case related to 2020, NIA versus Jahur Ahmad Watali case. In this, Supreme Court said normally any court will any court will observe the witnesses or evidences and then it will deliver its judgment. But in these cases of UAPA, Supreme Court what it found is it will look into the prima facie. Okay, prima facie will be narrowed. Okay, that means they are going to look into the totality of the case. They will not go by analyzing the evidences. Evidences will not be given importance, but they will be looking into the totality of the case and they will decide whether the person is accused or not. As I told earlier, accused is having the burden of proof here, not the other person against whom the accused has made some allegations and all. So here in NIA versus Jahur Ahmad Watali case also the same thing. That means they are not going to look into evidences, and by looking into the totality only they are going to decide whether that person is accused or not in UAPA related cases. And another important thing you have to remember is there are some special designated courts. For example, UAPA tribunals are there. Okay, so these tribunals are established mainly for dealing with these cases related to UAPA. In who will appoint these tribunals means it is against the central government. Again, the central government will appoint these tribunals. Who will be heading this? A person, judge of a high court, who is having like a qualification to become judge of a high court, will be appointed as the head of the tribunal, and he is only one member. Okay, these tribunals will be having only one member to decide the cases, and then these tribunals will be deciding the cases related to UAPA, not the normal courts. So this is what you have to remember with respect to UAPA tribunals. Then, what is a bayhead? So normally here what you have to observe is there are some allegations that center is misusing this act and all, but this act was originally brought mainly to protect the unity, integrity and sovereignty of the country. So both managing security as well as fundamental rights is the harmony, that is what we expect. Okay, so these things have to be looked into, because terrorism should be curtailed, at the same time security and fundamental rights both should also be protected. Then, what is the prelims related question? Consider the following statements regarding protection of people arrested under preventive detention. You answer in the comment section which article deals with preventive detention. It is available only to citizens. Only is a word used here. You have to focus on these words. It cannot be extended more than 3 months under any circumstance. So always focus on these extreme words. Which of the following statements is correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. So answer in the comment section. Then, what is the main question for practice? Preventive detention laws in the country have come to the associated with frequent misuse. Discuss issues arising out of preventive detention and Supreme Court views on this particular issue. So this is what you have to answer for mains. So what is the issue we have discussed is UAPA. We have seen how it came into picture, what is its scope, to whom it will apply, and what are the provisions and who are empowered to designate, and what are subsequent amendments related to UAPA. And we have seen what is the Supreme Court ruling with respect to UAPA and how it is different from general law, general criminal law, and what is the exception here, what is the rule here. We have seen all these issues. Thank you.